Why do people challenge you? Why do they question your decisions, doubt your choices, test your boundaries? Why do you feel the urge to explain yourself? At work, in relationships, in arguments, just to be understood? Here is the uncomfortable truth. The more you explain yourself, the less powerful you appear. And today, we are solving this problem. We are dismantling the unconscious habit of over-explaining, the silent behavior that drains authority, invites disrespect, and signals weakness. Because power does not explain itself, as Niccolò Machiavelli understood centuries ago, authority is not maintained through justification. It is maintained through control of perception. There is a subtle mistake intelligent people make. They believe clarity earns respect. They believe transparency builds trust. They believe explaining themselves proves confidence. It does not. In courts of Renaissance Florence, explanation was not seen as honesty. It was seen as vulnerability. The prince who justified his actions appeared uncertain. The ruler who defended himself appeared accused. The leader who explained too much invited scrutiny, and scrutiny is the beginning of erosion. This is not about arrogance. It is about psychological positioning. When you constantly explain yourself, you train others to believe you owe them reassurance. And the moment you owe reassurance, you surrender leverage. Let me tell you something most people will never admit to themselves. Every time you over-explain your decisions, you are not clarifying, you are kneeling. It does not feel like kneeling. It feels responsible, mature, transparent. You believe you are being reasonable. You believe you are preventing misunderstanding. But beneath the surface, something far more dangerous is happening. You are accepting the other person's authority to judge you. Think carefully about this. When someone questions your choice and you rush to explain, what are you really communicating? You are silently saying, you deserve access to my reasoning, you deserve reassurance, you deserve comfort. Power never moves like this. In the political courts analyzed by Niccolò Machiavelli, rulers did not survive by over-clarifying their motives. They survived by maintaining position. The moment a prince appeared, as though he owed the public emotional comfort, he ceased to look like a ruler and began to look like a defendant. And defendants are already on trial. This is what most people do not understand. The second you start defending your decision unnecessarily, you unconsciously enter a lower frame. You step into the psychological position of someone who needs approval. You hand over the invisible gavel. Now the other person is not merely conversing with you. They are evaluating you. Notice how this plays out in your daily life. Someone says, "Why did you do that?" Immediately, your nervous system activates. You begin constructing explanations. You add context. You add backstory. You add emotional tone. You soften your position so they feel comfortable. But what would happen if you simply said, "Because I chose to"? The discomfort would rise, the air would tighten, and in that tightening, the hierarchy would reveal itself. The one who feels compelled to explain is the one who feels pressure. The one who remains still applies pressure. This is not about arrogance. It is about psychological alignment. In the prince, there is a consistent undercurrent. A ruler must avoid appearing weak above all else. Weakness invites invasion. Weakness invites testing. Weakness invites challenge. When you over-explain, you signal uncertainty. And uncertainty is the scent predators detect. Watch high-status individuals carefully. When they make a decision, they do not scramble to justify it to every voice in the room. They state it, they own it, they move forward. If clarification is required strategically, they provide it calmly and briefly. But they never spill into emotional defense, because defense implies attack, and if you are defending, you are acknowledging that someone has the power to threaten your position. Here is the subtle truth that will change the way you move forever. Explanation becomes a ritual of submission when it is driven by fear of disapproval. Fear makes your tone softer, it makes your sentences longer, it makes you seek validation disguised as clarity. But confidence compresses language. Confidence does not rush, confidence does not chase understanding. When you truly believe in your decision, you do not feel urgency to justify it. You allow others to sit with their confusion. You allow them to process without you managing their emotions. And that restraint shifts the entire power dynamic. The next time someone challenges you, pause before you respond. Feel the impulse to explain. Notice how quickly your mind tries to construct a defense. That impulse is not logic. It is conditioning. You have been trained to believe that being questioned requires submission. It does not. Sometimes the most dominant response is the simplest one. That's what I decided, and then silence. Because when you stop performing reassurance for others, you begin occupying authority without asking permission to do so. There is a reason silence makes people uncomfortable. It exposes hierarchy. Most individuals cannot tolerate silence in moments of tension. When a question hangs in the air, when a challenge is made, when doubt is implied, they rush to fill the space. They speak quickly, they clarify, they soften, they explain, they try to regain control with words. But the one who controls silence controls the psychological terrain. Understand this clearly. When someone questions you and you respond immediately with a flood of explanation, you are reacting. Reaction is movement, and the one who moves first often reveals more than intended. Silence, however, is stillness. And stillness under pressure signals strength. In the world observed by Niccolò Machiavelli, rulers were measured not only by what they said, but by what they refused to say. A prince who reacted emotionally to every accusation appeared unstable. A ruler who remained composed, unreadable, and sparing with words appeared unshakable. Silence forces others to confront their own uncertainty. Imagine this moment. Someone challenges your decision in a meeting. They lean forward and ask, "Are you sure that's the right move?" The average person immediately defends themselves. They start layering reasoning. They cite evidence. They attempt to convince. But what happens if you simply look at them, pause, and say nothing for a few seconds? Watch carefully what unfolds. Discomfort rises not in you, but in them. They begin to elaborate. They clarify their own question. They soften their tone. Sometimes they even retreat, because silence transfers pressure. The one who cannot tolerate silence is usually the one who feels insecure. Psychologically, humans interpret calm silence in two ways, either as uncertainty or as dominance. The difference lies in your composure. If your posture is stable, your breathing steady, your expression controlled, silence is read as confidence. You are signaling that you are not threatened. And if you are not threatened, others begin to question whether they should be. Silence creates asymmetry. It makes the other person wonder what you are thinking. It denies them access to your internal state. And when people cannot read you, they become cautious. Caution is respect in its early form. Most people talk themselves into lower status without realizing it. They overshare intentions. They explain emotional reactions. They reveal doubts. They leak information that weakens their position. But when you speak less, every word gains weight. This is why concise individuals often command rooms without raising their voice. Their restraint amplifies their presence. People lean in because there is scarcity in what they offer. Scarcity creates value. Silence also gives you something far more powerful than dominance. It gives you information. When you stop filling every conversational gap, others start revealing themselves. They speak longer. They disclose motives. They expose insecurities. They attempt to persuade, and in doing so, they show you exactly where they stand. The silent observer gathers intelligence while appearing passive, but silence is not passive. It is calculated stillness. It is emotional discipline. It is refusing to give away your psychological position. In negotiations, the individual who speaks after making an offer often weakens it. They begin justifying the number, they soften the demand, they compromise prematurely, but the one who states the offer and remains silent forces the other party to respond first. That first response contains leverage. Silence creates superiority because it shifts who is seeking validation. When you over-explain, you are seeking agreement. When you remain calm and measured, others seek alignment with you. And here is the deeper layer. Silence demonstrates internal certainty. You are not scrambling to manage perception. You are not rushing to control how others interpret you. You are stable enough to let interpretation unfold without interference. That stability unsettles people who rely on constant reassurance. The more emotionally neutral you become, the less others can manipulate you. Emotional reactions are handles. Silence removes the handles. So the next time tension enters the room, resist the instinct to speak immediately. Let the moment breathe. Let the weight of your composure settle over the interaction. Because the individual who can remain silent without anxiety does not just participate in the power dynamic, they define it. Let us confront a truth most people avoid. The more you try to prove your strength, the more you reveal your doubt. Over-justification is rarely about clarity. It is about anxiety. It is the subtle fear that if you do not defend yourself thoroughly, you will lose respect. It is the internal whisper that says, make them understand you, or you will lose control. But control does not come from convincing everyone. It comes from being unmoved when they are unconvinced. When you over-justify your actions, your tone shifts, your pace accelerates, your sentences become longer. You stack reasons on top of reasons, hoping the accumulation of logic will solidify your position. Yet paradoxically, the more you add, the weaker you appear. Because certainty does not ramble, certainty is concise. In the political realities dissected by Niccolò Machiavelli, perception was everything. A ruler's greatest vulnerability was not making a controversial decision. It was appearing unsure after making it. Once uncertainty was sensed, rivals grew bold. Opposition gathered momentum. Doubt spread like infection. Your personal life operates under the same psychological laws. When someone challenges you and you respond with excessive reasoning, what are you communicating beneath the surface? You are signaling that their approval matters deeply to you. You are signaling that their disagreement destabilizes you. You are signaling that your internal foundation is negotiable. People are extraordinarily sensitive to this. Humans instinctively test for weakness, not always maliciously, but naturally. It is how hierarchies are established. If you present a firm boundary and immediately soften it with long justification, the message is clear. Pressure works on you. And what works gets repeated. Consider this scenario. You decline an invitation. Instead of saying, I won't be able to attend, You say, "I'm really sorry, I've just been so busy lately, and I have a lot going on, and I didn't sleep well, and I need to focus on some priorities." What happened there? You transformed a simple decision into a defensive performance. You attempted to protect yourself from potential disapproval. But in doing so, you unconsciously lowered your authority. When your decisions require emotional cushioning, they appear fragile. Confidence does not rush to neutralize every possible misunderstanding. Confidence accepts that some people will disagree. Confidence tolerates tension without scrambling to dissolve it. Over-justification also creates a dangerous dynamic. It invites cross-examination. The more details you provide, the more material you give others to question. You open doors that were never meant to be opened. You expose angles that did not need exposure. You create complexity where simplicity would have protected you. This is why powerful communicators often say less than expected. They understand that each additional explanation shifts focus from their decision to their defense of it. And once you are defending, you are no longer leading. There is also an internal cost. Every time you overjustify, you reinforce a subtle belief within yourself. My choices are not enough on their own. That belief compounds over time. It erodes self-trust. It conditions you to seek external validation before feeling secure. But self-trust grows in silence. When you state a decision without excessive reasoning, you train your nervous system to tolerate disagreement. You build resilience against external pressure. You detach your identity from constant approval. In The Prince, the underlying lesson was not cruelty. It was steadiness. A ruler had to project unwavering resolve, even when facing resistance. Not because he was always certain internally, but because visible uncertainty destabilized power. Your life demands the same discipline. When challenged, resist the urge to overprove. When doubted, resist the instinct to over-explain. Speak clearly, speak briefly, then stop. Let others wrestle with their reaction without you rushing to soothe it. Because the moment you no longer feel compelled to justify your existence, your decisions, or your boundaries excessively, you begin operating from strength. Rather than fear, there is something unsettling about a person who cannot be fully read, not cold, not hostile, just controlled. You cannot quite predict them. You cannot quite decode their next move. They do not rush to clarify their thoughts. They do not volunteer unnecessary emotion. They do not scramble to explain every action, and because of that they feel elevated. Controlled mystery is not manipulation. It is discipline over self-exposure. Most people leak information constantly. They narrate their insecurities. They reveal their plans prematurely. They explain their motives in detail. They update everyone on their emotional state. And in doing so, they make themselves predictable. Predictability lowers perceived power. When people can anticipate your reactions, they feel comfortable testing you. When they know you will always respond, always clarify, always defend, they feel safe challenging you. But when your inner world is not easily accessible, something shifts. Humans are wired to respect what they cannot fully grasp. In the political climate analyzed by Niccolò Machiavelli, leaders survived not by transparency alone, but by calculated opacity. A prince who revealed every intention made it easier for rivals to prepare. A ruler who exposed every emotion became easier to manipulate. Mystery creates psychological distance. Distance creates elevation. Elevation creates authority. This does not mean becoming secretive or deceptive. It means practicing restraint. It means understanding that not every thought deserves expression, not every plan requires announcement, not every criticism deserves response. When you speak less about your ambitions, people observe your results instead. When you do not constantly explain your reasoning, your decisions appear instinctive rather than negotiated. When you remain emotionally steady, others project confidence onto you. Projection is powerful. People fill in the gaps you leave behind, and most of the time they fill those gaps with assumptions of strength. If your posture, tone, and behavior communicate stability, consider how different it feels when someone constantly explains themselves compared to someone who simply acts. The one who explains appears to be managing perception. The one who acts appears to be managing reality. Which one commands more respect? Controlled mystery also protects your leverage. The more people know about your fears, your doubts, your exact intentions, the easier it becomes to influence you. Information is currency. When you give it away carelessly, you weaken your negotiating position in every domain: professional, social, romantic. When others are uncertain about your next move, they move carefully around you. Carefulness is a form of respect. There is a reason powerful figures throughout history cultivated an aura rather than constant explanation. In The Prince, the lesson is subtle but clear. Perception must be managed strategically. A ruler should appear decisive, composed, and self-contained. Too much accessibility dissolves mystique. Too much emotional exposure reduces gravitas. In your own life, this translates into small but transformative shifts. You do not need to announce every boundary, enforce it quietly. You do not need to correct every misunderstanding. Let your consistency clarify over time. You do not need to reveal every ambition. Let your results speak before your words do. The moment you stop over-explaining, something interesting happens. People begin to watch you more closely. They listen more carefully when you do speak. Your words carry density because they are not diluted by constant output. Scarcity increases value. Mystery also strengthens your internal stability. When you are not compulsively explaining yourself, you conserve energy. You stop performing for approval. You detach from the need to be fully understood at all times. And here is a truth that may unsettle you. Not everyone deserves to understand you. Access is earned. When you treat your inner world as valuable rather than publicly available, others begin to treat it the same way. Controlled mystery is the balance between presence and restraint. You are engaged, but not exposed. You are calm, but not distant. You are clear, but not overly detailed. And in that balance, authority forms naturally. Because the person who does not feel compelled to explain every move is perceived as someone who trusts themselves completely, and self-trust is one of the rarest and most intimidating forms of power. Conclusion: so understand what we have uncovered. Explaining yourself is not always communication. Often, it is a reflex born from fear. Fear of misunderstanding, fear of rejection, fear of losing control of how others perceive you. But perception is not controlled through over-explanation. It is controlled through composure. The more you justify unnecessarily, the more you signal doubt, the more you rush to clarify, the more you lower your frame. The more you expose every motive, the more predictable you become. And predictability is the enemy of authority. Niccolò Machiavelli understood something timeless. Power is not maintained by convincing everyone of your goodness. It is maintained by projecting steadiness, decisiveness, and emotional control. In The Prince, the lesson was never about cruelty. It was about perception. A ruler who appeared uncertain invited resistance. A ruler who appeared unshakable discouraged it before it began. Your life operates under the same law. When you stop over-explaining, you stop performing submission rituals. When you embrace silence, you shift pressure onto others. When you resist over-justifying, you communicate certainty. When you cultivate controlled mystery, you elevate your presence. This does not mean becoming cold. It does not mean refusing healthy communication. It means eliminating the compulsive need to defend your existence. There is a difference between clarity and pleading, between leadership and defensiveness, between strength and the performance of strength. The next time someone questions you, pause, do not rush, feel the urge to explain, and let it pass. Speak with intention. Keep it brief, let silence do its work, because the individual who does not feel obligated to justify every move is the individual who operates from internal authority. And internal authority is felt long before it is understood.